U.S. military convoys are moving through Germany right now in significant numbers. Hundreds of U.S. military vehicles, armored transports, fuel trucks, heavy logistics carriers have been documented moving across German highways in organized convoys. Not one column, not two. Wave after wave of military equipment flowing through one of NATO's most strategically important countries. The question analysts are asking, what does this signal? And more importantly, what message does this send to Moscow? Because Germany isn't just another NATO member. According to defense analysts, it serves as NATO's primary logistics hub in Europe. And when American convoys move there in significant numbers, it typically indicates something strategic is underway. Let's break down what we know. Over the past several days, videos and photographs have surfaced showing long columns of U.S. Army vehicles traveling across multiple German regions. Military police escorts, heavy equipment transporters, armored support vehicles, all moving in coordinated formation. This type of movement doesn't happen randomly. Germany hosts one of the largest U.S. military footprints in Europe. From Ramstein Air Base to key logistics centers like Grafenwehr Training Area and Landstuhl Regional Medical Center throughout the country, it forms the backbone of American power projection on the continent. These movements appear consistent with Operation Atlantic Resolve, the ongoing U.S. rotational force operation in Europe designed to reassure NATO allies and deter potential aggression. To understand why this matters, you need to understand Germany's strategic geography. Germany sits at the center of Europe. It connects Western Europe to Eastern NATO states, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Defense experts describe it as the staging ground, the supply corridor, the reinforcement gateway. When the United States needs to move forces eastward, according to NATO logistics planning, everything flows through Germany: fuel, ammunition, armored vehicles, troops. So when hundreds of vehicles traverse German territory, military analysts interpret this as a demonstration of readiness. And readiness is precisely what Moscow monitors closely. Officially, movements like this are typically associated with scheduled exercises. NATO regularly conducts readiness drills across Europe, including the major Defender Europe exercises designed to test how quickly forces can mobilize, how rapidly reinforcements can move east, and how efficiently supply chains operate. Germany plays a central role in these drills under NATO coordination. But here's what makes this particular movement noteworthy: the scale and the visibility. Military convoys of this size aren't routine logistical operations. According to defense analysts, they function as strategic statements, and in geopolitics, visibility is often intentional. From Moscow's perspective, according to Russian military doctrine experts, this represents more than highway traffic. Russia has consistently criticized NATO's expansion and reinforcement posture in Eastern Europe. The recent restructuring of Russia's Leningrad military district specifically monitors NATO activities in this corridor. Russian officials view large-scale Western military movements near what they consider their sphere of influence as strategic pressure. So when American equipment flows through Germany, the gateway to NATO's eastern flank, Russian analysts take notice. Here's a point that often gets overlooked in mainstream coverage. Logistics determines military outcomes, not headlines, not political speeches, logistics. And what Germany represents, according to military strategists, is logistics dominance for NATO operations. Let's provide some broader context. The United States maintains rotational forces across Europe, heavy armored brigades, air defense systems, rapid response units. Movements like what we're observing may indicate several possibilities: equipment repositioning, exercise preparation, reinforcement drills, or longer-term posture adjustments related to Operation Eastern Sentry, NATO's current eastern flank operation. In modern military strategy, mobility functions as deterrence. The logic, according to defense planners, is straightforward. If you can move forces quickly, you influence escalation dynamics. If you can reinforce rapidly, you discourage potential aggression. That appears to be the underlying message here: not confrontation, but deterrence through demonstrated capability. Here's something most observers miss when analyzing military movements. Military power isn't solely about fighter jets or missile systems. It's fundamentally about trucks, fuel carriers, supply vehicles, and transport columns. Because without logistics infrastructure, nothing else functions. Hundreds of vehicles moving across Germany may not appear dramatic on the surface, but strategically, according to military analysts, it's significant. And that's precisely why major powers monitor these movements carefully. Now let's examine what might come next. Germany isn't the final destination for these convoys. It's the corridor. And corridors matter strategically when forces might pass through them toward forward positions. Germany connects directly to NATO's eastern flank Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia regions situated closer to Russia's western borders. The critical Suwalki Gap between Poland and Lithuania represents a particular vulnerability that NATO planners constantly assess. Over recent years, NATO has strengthened its forward presence in those countries through battle groups, air defense systems, and rotational armored units. Poland's new East Shield program, a $2.5 billion defensive network, and the ongoing Baltic defense line fortifications demonstrate how seriously the alliance takes corridor defense. And according to NATO planning documents, every reinforcement follows the same pattern: movement through Germany first. That's why defense analysts examine more than just vehicle counts. They study direction, timing, and coordination. Because in military planning, patterns often reveal strategic intent. Here's another dimension worth understanding. Fighter jets generate headlines. Missile deployments dominate news coverage. But military planners focus intensively on different factors: supply line capacity, fuel availability, maintenance cycles, infrastructure limitations. Convoys like these effectively test infrastructure resilience. Can highways support the weight? Can rail systems accommodate heavy armor? Can units relocate quickly without significant disruption? These aren't random vehicle movements. Defense experts describe them as mobility rehearsals. And mobility, in military terms, translates directly to operational advantage. From Moscow's analytical perspective, NATO's primary strength isn't raw firepower, it's speed and coordination. Russian military doctrine, according to published assessments, closely monitors NATO's reinforcement capabilities. Not just troop numbers, but how rapidly those forces can deploy near strategically significant regions. So when American vehicles move visibly in large formations, it communicates a clear message: rapid scaling capability exists. And in geopolitical calculations, speed creates strategic leverage. There's an additional layer to consider here. If this movement were purely logistical, with no strategic communication intent, it could theoretically occur quietly at night, in smaller groups, with minimal visibility. But large, organized daytime convoys accomplish something different. They demonstrate presence. Deterrence, according to strategic theory, functions most effectively when it's visible rather than concealed. Strategic visibility reduces the probability of miscalculation. Ambiguity can generate mistakes, but visible readiness communicates clarity. Military observers consistently ask, why this timing? Is it routine scheduling? A planned multinational exercise? Part of broader adjustments to Europe's security architecture? Timing and strategy is rarely accidental. Even routine drills are scheduled deliberately because every military movement occurs within a specific political context. And Europe's current security environment remains tense, which transforms every convoy from simple transportation into strategic symbolism. Let's be clear about proportionality here. Hundreds of vehicles moving through Germany doesn't automatically indicate escalation. It doesn't necessarily signal imminent conflict. But it does represent active readiness infrastructure. And readiness forms the foundation of effective deterrence. In contemporary defense planning, the objective is straightforward: prevent conflict by demonstrating capability not through rhetoric, but through visible preparation. Germany, as Europe's central logistics hub, becomes the natural stage for that demonstration. Now let's consider potential responses and implications. In geopolitics, every significant move typically generates some form of response. Russia could respond with increased military exercises near its Leningrad military district, expanded air patrols, or official statements regarding NATO expansion. Not necessarily confrontational measures, but counter-visibility. Because when one side demonstrates readiness, the other side often demonstrates resilience. That's how strategic equilibrium functions: movement, observation, adjustment in continuous cycles. Here's something rarely addressed in mainstream coverage. Ground convoys don't operate in isolation within military planning. Where logistics flows, air support coordination typically follows. Germany hosts major U.S. air facilities, transport aircraft, refueling capabilities, command and control centers. So when ground mobility increases, air coordination generally aligns with it. This doesn't indicate imminent air operations. It indicates synchronized framework planning, land, air, and supply operating as integrated deterrence. From Russia's strategic calculations, NATO mobility represents a core variable. Russian planners calculate response times, study reinforcement speeds, and model potential deployment timelines. When hundreds of vehicles move visibly, that information feeds directly into those calculations. And calculations influence policy decisions, not emotions, not headlines, but concrete numbers, distances, timeframes, capabilities. Here's a paradox most observers don't fully appreciate. The more visible the readiness demonstration, the less likely miscalculation becomes. Clear capability can actually contribute to stability, because ambiguity generates uncertainty, while transparency combined with strength creates predictability. And predictability reduces the probability of accidental escalation. So, somewhat counterintuitively, convoys moving openly on highways may contribute more to regional stability than concealed movements ever could. What happens next remains to be determined. Possibly nothing dramatic occurs. Exercises conclude as scheduled. Units rotate according to plan. But strategically, the message has already been communicated. The United States maintains rapid mobilization capability across Europe. Germany continues functioning as NATO's logistical center. And Russia, like all major powers, analyzes every significant movement not because transport vehicles are inherently dramatic, but because logistics capabilities determine military outcomes long before any conflict materializes. Ultimately, this situation isn't fundamentally about convoys. It's about demonstrated capability, it's about operational speed, and it's about the underlying architecture of strategic power that operates beneath the surface of international politics. When that architecture becomes visible, the international community pays attention. That's today's analysis. If you found this breakdown valuable, consider subscribing for daily strategic briefings. I'm interested in your perspective. What do you think this positioning signals? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay informed.